Welcome to the Compost Pile, a podcast where we break down gardening, homesteading, and more. Join your hosts, David Poole and Aaron Barnhill, as they pile up information and break it down so that you can be more successful in the garden. Hey guys, welcome back to the Compost Pile, your source for all things homesteading and gardening. And today we have a guest. We have Justin Cashman with us. And I brought Justin on today to maybe talk about one of the things that I find personally important in like starting a garden or a homestead or any outdoor space for that matter. And that's kind of like maybe talking a little bit about aesthetics. The look, the feel, and maybe what listeners might want to look for when they're getting ready to start a new, or maybe they're starting a new project. Maybe we can get some tips from you as your journey. You recently, basically designed your whole yard.
Yeah.
And it looks phenomenal. Maybe I'll throw up some pictures on
Sure.
the video of this podcast so people can see. You did a really incredible job of creating that space, and maybe we can talk about what went into your mind when you created it and the reasons why you chose to do it the way you did.
Sure. So really started out, all we had was a little back porch and a field. And, it kind of grew as I had ideas, and I knew I wanted it to be nice for the family. Obviously, sit outside, spend time together. And I really just kind of did it as I went. I, started with the foundational stuff, which I've learned is the most important part, leveling your ground, make sure your drainage is good, things like that, your fencing, any of your structures that are permanent. And then as that goes, I kind of get inspiration from others as well as I talk to people, whether it be at a local feed store or something like that. And depending on the plants I like, trees, learning about layering your plants.
Yeah.
And I kind of see what fits in my area, and in different areas, like maybe this corner over here I do it this way, this corner's a little different. But for me, I want it to be inviting. I want it to be kind of a relaxing place to sit and just unwind with people and enjoy a space.
Yeah, enjoy the space,
Yeah.
And not everybody in their mind is built the same. So some people will start out projects like you did, and they're gonna start off with one little small space, with a small idea in their head, and then maybe that idea evolves over a long period of time and it turns into something bigger, and they just keep building off each individual phase. And then I think there's people that are more like myself, where like I have to have the whole
100%.
gambit in my mind. I won't know every little detail, but I have to have like the big items. And I have to have the hard decisions made because in my mind, I'm too scared to put something in the wrong place and then regret it and then have to redo it. I know you're an entrepreneur as well, so time is kind of precious. You're busy working, family, so you want to do things like right the first time. And I agree. I want my space to be inviting, and I've said this on this podcast before, and I tell customers all the time that for me, if the space is not aesthetically inviting, if it doesn't bring some sense of enjoyment to me when I step out of like my truck every day to walk in the front door, or if my garden was in the backyard and I walked out on the back patio, then I'm never going to actually physically put myself in there to work on it, because it looks to me like a chore, not an enjoyment.
100%.
And I kind of I felt like when I saw the way you created your space, like, maybe in my head, like maybe you kind of had some of the same ideas, because you had this just, it was like everything was just perfect, but it didn't happen like that overnight.
Right.
So what are some some of the main fundamentals? You mentioned like ground, which I think is incredibly important here, like fencing. What are some other things that you looked at before you decided to put the first thing out?
Okay, so for me, and I've heard this from others, I really like trees. I like trees around me, but I don't want to be in a wooded area. I want sunlight. I want, things to grow. I want the grass to grow. I don't want dead splotchy patches of grass. So trees are important to get in the ground early. That way they have time to grow. I didn't necessarily do that, but you learn. So get your trees, figure out where you want those, and I kind of built around my trees. So I did a lot of crepe myrtles that get taller, and I want to train them to be more multi-stem, but like 2 or 3, not 10.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I focus on my trees, and then I would kind of figure out, what my designs would be. Maybe I don't want to say you just have a single theme. You can have multiple kind of, like I liked the Corten metal that rusts.
Yep.
So for my borders, I want something that's going to last. I don't want to change out plastic border all the time. So I went with that around my raised bed garden, and that kind of is really where I started. Was my raised bed garden up against the fence. It was one little thing. I added the metal, and then I was like, well, I kind of want to add it on this side of the gate so it's symmetrical. I don't want too much symmetry, but I kind of want everything to flow, and I want you to kind of want to walk into the next area.
Yeah, it's kind of you kind of have that like it's the path. Where does it
Yeah,
going to lead me?
yeah,
What else am I going to find or see?
yeah.
And I did the same thing. Like when we initially created the space we had, it was in between a sidewalk and the house, and there was this beautiful 30-foot tall magnolia tree, and at the time it was wonderful. But the grass wouldn't grow there. Our whole garden area and our front is all under oak canopies,
Mm-hmm.
and I love it, but it is harder to keep grass and it's harder to establish grass. So we knew right out of the gate that we had this like 250 square foot area, maybe larger, that we were going to have to do something with, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to be with grass. And we created like kind of a winding pathway around the tree, with the garden beds and the rock with different textures and such. And it's the same way you're talking.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be invited to just kind of meander around and just
Yeah.
watch. And that's one of my favorite things that building that space has taught me is observation. Just like
Yeah.
I don't always have to go out there and do something. Sometimes I could just stand around and like see what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm pretty ADHD, so I've been told as a kid, and I'm a little OCD. I think I get it from my mom. She's very clean and organized with things. So kind of when I get into things, I get obsessed with them, and I really want them to be perfect from the beginning. So I'll take my time and learn. I'm not a master of really any of this. I just really enjoy it. So I'll take my time and learn and kind of figure out what I like, and then kind of see what works for us in our area. So like I said, I started with the metal. That was my first thing I did. Laid it out, kind of got a vision of what I was looking for. And then I was like, well, I don't want it to be, everything's 45 and 90 degree angles with this metal. It looks great, but I want something that's a little more inviting and a little more, I guess, whimsical could be the word you used. So I decided to do the rock to kind of contrast that and add some curvature and whatnot. I really think that is one of the bigger things that really make it stand out as far as appearance for a lot of people. Everything kind of flows. If you saw in the video I posted where I have the fenced in area and most of it is inside, but I brought it outside the fence. So that way it kind of brings you, if you're on the outside looking in, it kind of brings you in because you want to see what's there. One of my beds goes kind of through the fence and around, probably 100 feet or so of continued flower bed, crepe myrtles and whatnot. So it kind of brings you back outside. So as you walk around, there's always something else to walk around and see. So once you get that foundational stuff and kind of get a vision, I really just, I start and I got a pallet of rock and I said, what looks good? And I started laying, I was like, I know I want a bed here. I'm going to lay it out. And there's several times I laid out rock for 100 feet and I picked it all back up and started over. And I got it. And I told my wife, I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And I was like wanting her to talk me out of changing it, but I'm glad I did. So just start and see where it goes. Just let your kind of creativity just take you where, it does.
I think like being creative is super important, but too like, which I think you've done a good job of, is like making sure that not only is it creative and it looks good, but it also has to have a fine balance of like functionality.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, like it can look awesome,
Mm-hmm.
but it might not be functional. From like, the rock is a really good option for around the beds.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things, like whenever I install, like as a landscaper, I install like corrugated beds. I almost always want rock around them because I know if I don't, I've got to weed eat around them. I've got to keep grass from growing in them. I've got to protect the finish of the actual the material so that it actually lasts as long as it
And
says
those
it is.
beds
So
can get expensive.
so there's
Yeah.
so there's so some of the things that you did really brought some maybe not well thought of functionality, but they're things that are gonna prolong the life of the installation and what you did. And I think a lot of the little things like that, people don't think about. And I'm not saying you're gonna think of it all, but
And you're not always going to get it right the first time. The
No.
first thing I did around those beds was I was like, I don't really want to spend $1,000, $2,000 on a load of rock, So I went at the the big box store $2 bag of mulch sale, and I bought 100 bags of mulch and I mulched around it. That was a bad decision. It turned into swampy, weed infested.
Yep.
I mean, I could not keep the grass and weeds out of it. It looks great the first week. And then it would also hold moisture up against the side of my raised beds. Those things are supposed to last 20, 30 years.
Yep.
And within 6 months, the paint's coming off the bottom and it's corroding. So whenever I started this, I pulled all that out. I say whenever I started really doing all this stuff in the backyard, I pulled all that out and went back with that rock. So originally, I think that's a little bit of what motivated me to continue, because when I put that rock in there, it was finally something that I wanted to do and not something I was doing just to save money. I did it the way I wanted to begin with, generally what I do, and it just kind of kept going and spreading and spreading. It's really kind of a sickness for me. Like I just really enjoy it.
yeah, you got there's some cool functional things that I saw that you did. You utilized the fence, and I think didn't you install a couple arbors?
I did. I'm actually. It's one of those things with the arbors. It's hard to find an arbor that fits your specific.
Yep.
If you're putting them on a gate, it's almost impossible to find an 8-foot arbor. The ones I did find were $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 still, and
Yep.
you got to pay for freight. So instead of doing that, I just found some designs I liked and kind of a little bit of creativity, and I just went. And I was really surprised. I thought cedar would cost a lot more for dimensional cedar, and it really wasn't bad. So I probably built that arbor. I think the big one. Do you see the one over the 8-foot? It's 8 foot wide, and we're gonna have climbing roses on it. I think I probably built that in about 2 hours, and I probably had $120 in lumber in it. So versus spending $2,000-$3,000 and having to get something probably custom made to fit my gate.
Right.
I had that done in no time. I have the tools to do it, but it's exactly what I want, and to me it feels inviting. It
and
feels
once those roses get over there, it's gonna
be great.
It's kind of like the I don't. This is a really weird reference, but growing up, I remember. I feel like I was forced to watch the movie The Secret Garden, and it gives you that look where those climbing roses get up there and it fills all the way out. You have to go through the gate to see what's on the other side, even though it's not completely walled off like that. But you can't see the full picture until you walk through, so it adds another element of invitation.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And there's multiple stages too. Whenever you start, everything is small. Right now, all my plants are small. In a couple of years, it's not going to be. And I probably made some mistakes. I might have to pull some stuff out that gets too big.
Yep.
I've planted oleanders that I thought would stay, 2 or 3 foot wide, and they're 8 foot wide, and they're taking over everything. So some of that stuff I'm probably going to have to take out.
That's how we find that a lot. People planting vining plants.
Oh yeah.
I probably sold in a 2-week time span 125 Peggy Martin roses.
We got a couple now.
And it's awesome. They're easy, they're resilient. But when I'd have people buying 3, 4, 5 of them, I'm like, where are you putting all these? And they're like, well, I'm gonna put them along this 10-foot fence span. I'm like,
you need one or two, yeah.
It's no, it's look at the one on my greenhouse over here. That's one.
Yeah.
And it's 20 something feet in the air. It's 20 foot long in multiple directions. It's been there a long time, but you got to plan for the future. So it is good in a way to step back and do a little bit of homework. And I always talk about planning is important, because if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, with things like vining plants and arbors and trellises, you can get overwhelmed really, really easy.
Yeah, it'll definitely teach you patience. I had the mistake of Ruelia, which Mexican petunia.
Yep.
Man, beautiful. the hummingbird moths all over it every morning. Go out there, drink coffee, they're all over it, but it spreads like a disease, and you cannot get rid of it.
And it gets in the root balls of other plants,
Oh, yeah.
and then it makes it even harder. I had a customer who had great landscape, but she'd have it right up underneath a red yucca, and no matter how many times I would pull it and thought I got it out, every time we go back to maintenance every year, it's back, back. And she doesn't even have it planted in her yard. So, I mean, it spreads like from other places. So, knowing what plants you're putting in, and you'll make those mistakes for sure, but there's definitely, I definitely agree with you that you've got to start with like some foundation. If you're designing a space that's really going to like bring you in and give you a little bit of everything, you definitely got to start with that overstory, the larger things, and build around it. Because I think so many times people they underutilize their space. They want a lot of plants and they love all these different things, but they say they're out of room. But when they're not actually out of room, it's because their planning was backwards. They planted small, then they're trying to fit these other things in. But the foundation piece is really, when you're designing a space, they bring some benefits that most people don't realize. Like, so the crepe myrtles that you have, you chose the get more like native style species that can get
very hardy.
Growing up, my parents have the whole back fence line is lined with like the native type species, and they're 25 foot, 30 foot tall in some places, and they have a beautiful shade canopy, and it's wonderful. But one of the things that like, depending on how you design your space, if you are in an area with no trees, you can actually it will help improve your soil long term. It's kind of before you came here today, and we were talking a little bit about drainage before. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of the water runoff and drainage issues that we encounter not only happens from building up and advancements in the municipal areas where there's more houses, things are closer together, but it also, trees have a lot to do with it. They increase, without trees you increase compaction. Water has no buffer when it hits the ground and it's pressing down on the soil. And that's one of the biggest things we deal with here is compaction. So if you don't have your foundation layer right, and you're not working to put some things in to maybe help alleviate that, and you're not ready to like mechanically alleviate compaction with aeration, then you can set yourself up not for failure, but you can set yourself up to
a little heartache in the future, possibly.
Or not realize your full vision. If you wanted like the picturesque lawn, or you wanted
That's me now.
the most robust, you want the most robust like garden, but it's getting cooked by the sun all day long because there's no natural shade. People oftentimes think like that shade is bad, and shade here is a resource. And we talk about that all the time. Like, just that Texas sun is not the same as other places in the same zone.
Right.
So I think starting off with big foundations and thinking about like maybe in your design, do you want a pergola? Like, that's what we're about to do. We lost our magnolia. I'm trying to sell my wife on a pergola in the front yard as a seating area for some of our potted plants, and like just a place to like sit in the middle of the garden because we lost our focal piece, but also to help bring back some of that shade that we are now not getting on some beds, and they're being harder to maintain than the previous 4 years, just from one of those foundational pieces.
Oh man, there's so many ways you can go. We're fixing to do a pergola as well, and I've researched different ways, whether it's built onto the house, built into the roof, whether you get the risers and it comes through your roof, whether it's freestanding. I think we're going to go probably risers through the roof. It's a little more expensive, but I think it's more permanent and more storm ready. But there's so many options now with doing, generally a pergola is open beam. You can see it whether you do cedar or whatever. Now they have so many options where you can cover it. And you can always cover with metal. They have like the thick, very durable plastic, also storm rated, that you can cover with. So you get that light, it's diffused, so you're not getting the heat. So that's something we're also working on, because we have no trees. So we have one of that one tree, the magnolia tree, and it's out right outside our fence. It's on the property, but outside the fence in the backyard. So kind of like you were talking about crepe myrtles, and whenever I was doing that, a tree is not necessarily a foundational thing, but it is one of those things you want to get in early, and it's somewhat permanent. So I guess you could consider it that.
And it's like for me, I guess from my perspective, I look at it slightly different because like I started with like 5 trees.
Yeah, I have
so
none.
I'm having to work around the environment that the trees are creating.
Yeah.
And all those things are important to know. You know, if you don't have trees, or you don't have like shade providing foundational features when you're starting a landscape project or a garden, then you got to know going into it, I'm going to have to water more. I'm going to have to provide more nutrients because the plants are going to be stressed more.
Oh yeah.
Whereas for me, going into it, looking at what I had, my worry was that I wasn't going to get enough light and my project wasn't going to succeed. But
Yeah.
water, I don't water hardly at all compared to some beds I hardly ever water because then we get enough rain, the moisture content stays really, really well. So it's completely different. So you do have to look at those things and what things are those items bringing to the table, or in your instance, like what's going to change as these trees begin to grow up, like because your space is going to evolve.
Oh yeah.
And you can't build it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
For success, but then when those trees get big, you might be fighting a whole nother problem.
So really, the way I have them laid out, kind of, it goes towards my end vision. So what I have in my head, I told my wife, it's like I don't want any trees that we can't walk under because I don't want it to be like a big blob in the middle of the yard. Which is great if you're trying to train a tree to do something specific. It's a specific type of tree, or it's going to be a giant oak tree one day, but I love seeing a tree that is about 2 or 3 foot over your head at the base, and you can walk under it. It gives you great shade, So I planted. I counted it. I think I have 11 crepe myrtles, and I have 1 or 2 that it'll get 30 foot tall, and a lot of them will get 15 to 20. And I'll try to keep them trained and clean, so that way I have a little canopy around like my kid's swing set and around maybe where we have some chairs or a fire pit, something like that. So realistically, I envision this kind of like enveloped space in the backyard that feels, I don't want to say magical. I don't really know how to put it into words. It's all in my head. But I see it in the future, if that makes sense. I had a vision, and I'm working towards it. And I think one day I'll get there. Maybe a little more trial and error, but...
I think that's like, for me, that's like a huge key takeaway to this conversation is that all that really matters when it all comes down to it, no matter what you choose and what you base your designs off of, is that it's got to feel right for you, and that you've actually got to enjoy it. I've definitely encountered way too many people that have done things that just like, when I talk to them, I just feel like they don't enjoy
it's
the
a chore.
space. Yeah, it's a chore. And the moment it becomes a chore, then it will always be that way until you make a change. And that's anything in life, which is kind of, I always like to talk about how like I feel that like plants and landscaping are very much like taking care of yourself. Plants, like the soil, all those things, they have a lot of the same core needs. Yeah. And when you take a step back and really like assess what you're doing and how it affects everything in the bigger picture, it's mind blowing. I mean, like it can be overwhelming as well, but like it forces you to learn, and that's been like that's my big why of why I do what I do is it's I get to step out and like learn something every day about the same space. It's teaching me something every day. I walked in here to get ready today, and house plants. I've got worms all over my house plant in here. Never would have crossed my mind. I don't know what I did or how it got in here, but like
inside the house.
So now I'm gonna figure out like, because what I normally would use to do it, it stinks so bad. Like I wouldn't put it in here. Like, so it's like now I have a new challenge, and
that's always going to be there. There's always going to be some challenge. You might have the best tomato harvest for 10 years straight, and then all of a sudden have the worst experience of your life.
This year is
and it doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It's just something different. It's a different challenge.
You gotta step back and look, just like anything in life, you gotta look at the failures to
Hmm.
teach you how to be more successful.
Yeah.
And that's like my tomato harvest this year, bumper crop. I've probably lost 50 plus
Well, good
percent
for you because mine's
to.
awful.
I've lost it to first. It was blossom end rot, which was
Oh,
mostly
so
in,
you're having a bad experience this year.
that was mostly in my trial. I did like a soil trial with all the soils that I sell,
Hmm.
and I planted the same tomato in all like undersized buckets, stressed them, just to see which ones would perform and how they compared. Um, right out of the gate, blossom and rot. Got that fixed up, no
Hmm.
big deal. It's an easy problem to solve. But the moment that got taken care of, the little like army worm caterpillars came in and started decimating my San Marzanos.
Mm.
Then early influx of stink bugs this year. They're here earlier. It's still cool. Man, when I was walking in here today, right now, it felt amazing outside, and the stink bugs are abundant.
Hmm.
I've never dealt with stink bugs in my garden ever.
Yeah, we had a bad experience with I call them stink bugs. It's really the leaf-footed.
It's a variety.
Yeah,
There's
they
over
stink.
there's over 1,000 varieties of stink
Hmm.
bugs. So the leaf-footed stink bug is, that's this
Yeah.
varietal type. The little nymphs. A lot of people are like, oh, it's not a stink bug. It is.
Yeah,
It's just a different kind.
yeah.
And yeah, those have been abundant already this year. And then just like the worms, no matter how. And I don't like to use.
If you don't want to use pesticides, it's tough. You have to go with a more mechanical, hands-on approach.
And we usually do that. And I did have to spray BT, which is
Mhm.
an organic. I sprayed it twice, but it also led me to like I let my stuff be a little more whimsical.
Sure.
Next year, I'm going to go back in with the same approach, but I'm going to do a lot more pruning at a younger
Amen.
age.
Yeah.
And I've
Me
never
too.
been good at like young pruning on plants. I probably cut half these tomato plants off, and like it slowed it down, but it wasn't enough. Like, and I was like, if I'd have done this ahead, now I've learned my lesson, and I know I'll still get some, but it won't be the same.
Yeah.
So it's there's always a lesson to be learned. I feel.
I saw Paul Lemoyne on here talking about pruning tomatoes, and he said some people are scared to prune your tomatoes, and I felt like it was a personal attack at me because if I get a little tomato on one of those branches that needs to be pruned, I'm like, oh, I can't get it.
I mean, the cool thing about tomatoes is I feel it's pretty easy. I mean, you either have like flowering and fruiting branches,
Mhm.
and because I look in there and my plant's massive, and I'm like, I don't have time to figure out which one's which.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
if I've got one branch over here that's got flowers and fruit on it, and this one right now that's coming off the side has nothing on it,
Mhm.
it goes. You
Yeah.
know, it's like because at this point in stage, like if it doesn't have a flower on it, it's probably not going to get one.
Yeah.
And even if it does, it'll do it on some other branch. So it's fine. Um,
You mentioned a while ago your soil health.
yeah.
And that is, I would say, a foundational thing, putting good soil in your raised beds, because I made the mistake of going the cheap route because I needed so much.
Mhm.
I ended up, it would not drain water. I actually bought topsoil from somebody locally, like a load, and shoveled it into all my 12 raised beds, and shoveled it in, and it would not drain. And I ended up having to shovel it all out. It's a lot easier getting it in than it is getting it out.
Yep. That's like topsoil is one of those things like that I find is the most misused
Hmm.
item. For me, topsoil is when you look at like no matter you buy a decent quality topsoil, but if you like pull it out of the bag and you look at the color, and then you go and get like a high quality garden soil and you put them side by side.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to know anything about soil
Mhm.
to know which one needs to go in that bed. And that's a big mistake people make on a foundational level from landscape design is they go in with the cheap bulk soils because the pocketbook does matter. I mean, like I get that, but at the end of the day, you'll spend that same amount of money that you would have on the better soil with all the problems it's going to create 1, 2, 3, 6 months, a year down the road.
Yeah.
So soil is incredibly important, and it's
important to get it tested before you make any rash decisions.
And
I didn't want to take the time to do it. That was on me. I learned my lesson. I won't do it again.
people don't like they forget that soil is a living thing.
100%.
And that's why like you have to be intentional. That's what really drove me to be more of a natural gardener, to run more of a natural landscape company. Like we, probably one of the few out there. I don't use a whole lot of chemicals in general.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. And all my landscape installs get all organic fertilizers, all time released, all very intentional inputs, and we minimize the use of those chemical inputs because as a foundational item, my customers who don't know as much as I do are going to be more successful because I've ideally set them up.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do the same for yourself as a DIY or a home person. You set yourself up by learning the inputs that you are using and what they actually do. And that's soil's the most important thing, like
Yeah.
ever. And that it affects.
Any gardener will tell you that. And non-gardeners getting into it, I was one of those. You're like, nah.
And,
I'm sure the stuff that's a quarter of the price is probably just as good, or it'll get me by for now.
yeah,
But I'm telling you, we recently tested. It's been in our bed for 1 year, and I bought big name soil last year when I replaced it. Didn't get anything tested. Just bought it, probably a couple $1,000s for those beds, and tested it this year. It was almost completely zero on nutrients,
Yep.
and that's why I was having issues with things growing. So
That's
I had to heavily amend it.
and just because you the soil's a living thing, it's
Right.
breaking down, and if there's too much organic matter in it, then it's immobilizing all the
Mhm.
nutrients, trying to break down that organic matter so that it can become higher quality soil, compost.
Very
And-
important.
And
Yeah.
that's something that that's what having like bulk garden mixes. Nothing wrong with them. I never speak bad about them, but they're not the most ideal for beginners
Mhm.
because beginners don't have that core knowledge of how it'll rob nutrients away from the plants.
Right.
And then they get discouraged. They fail right out of the gate in season one when they're designing a new landscape. They bought all the thousands of dollars of plants and they did all this stuff and it looked good
Mhm.
for this short amount of time. And I think too, like having that soil foundation and knowing, learning more about the inputs, which I'll link some older episodes back in the notes today. Like, if you're doing like, you have like a good mixture of like functional, like
Mhm.
vegetables, you got flower beds, then you also have just kind of like landscape beds.
Aesthetic. Yeah.
But if all those things that you're putting into those beds translates over into even the yard, and long term, that's what helps you relieve compaction.
Mhm.
That's what actually helps you relieve like stormwater runoff because of the type of native soil we have here. If you're putting the wrong things into your turf or into your beds, then you're damaging the soil. Then in turn, water and nutrients are less likely available. Plants struggle. They become disease ridden. They become pest ridden, and it's just this vicious cycle. And then people they're putting those like typical lawn fertilizers out, and then it's just this Band-Aid effect. Like they put it on, they cut it open, put it on, cut it open, and nothing ever gets better. And that's because that soil, that core fundamental of soil doesn't exist.
Yeah. So I actually used to just use the generic weed and feed that was out there, and I feel like it actually made the weeds worse most of the time.
Technically, you are feeding the weeds so that it
Yeah.
will absorb the actual herbicide.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like those herbicides and even some of those nutrients, they're immediately available.
Mm-hmm.
So like the nitrates that are in there. So a healthy soil that is fungally dominated, they can't use nitrates. Your plants probably can't really grab a lot of those nitrates. So if you have like a robust living soil, a lot of the commonplace products don't really work as good as they should, and they make the soil poorer.
Mm-hmm.
And then in turn, weeds are opportunistic. They grow when the conditions are perfectly right.
Yeah.
And then it just like explodes.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right.
Yeah.
And so for some people it does work, but those are also the same people that they need it every single year.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think that plays a lot into putting the right thing down as a building block, and that's like creating your space.
Sure.
It's building blocks, it's steps
Yeah.
to get to the end goal, the bigger picture.
Yeah.
what structures are in the way. So, I can't plant this here because the sun's blocked by the house or the shed or the
Mm-hmm.
garage, the tree, whatever it may be. Like seeing all those things and the effects they have. Um, you know, uh, if there's anything I suggest to people today is like before you get out there and start the next project, just go out and spend, a few short times in your space
Mm-hmm.
as it is right now and look what's happening right now as it is. Now's a great time if you got drainage problems or like you're,
Oh
you know,
yeah,
it's
we've got a
core
lot of that.
foundation, the base layer for everything. It has rained an ungodly amount in
Yeah,
these past couple of days. So like, fix those things first,
absolutely.
and build upon it.
Yeah, that's your foundational things. I use that word a lot when I'm talking to my wife. She's like, "Can you please stop saying foundation?" Because I'm like, "Well, I really want to focus on this foundational stuff." It's because I look back and even when it's just grass, it was I walk outside and I see what do I have to do today? Like what maintenance? I got to weed eat. I got to do all this and I got to weed eat around all this stuff and so that was one of my main goals. Besides making it an inviting space, I really wanted to make it an enjoyable space for me because it's like having a boat. When I go out on a boat, all I think about is what I got to do to the boat when I get back.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's
when I'm in the yard, I don't want to think about I got to prune this, I got to prune that. So a big thing for me was I like cutting the grass and keeping it nice and tidy, but I don't like it when it's just out of hand or I have to weed eat and bend over on the weed eater for an hour and a half.
yep.
So it's like I built a deck around the kids' playground, so now it's a square. I can mow and almost get it perfect. Make a quick pass to the weed eater around the beds. Now I have the rock. So that is a big plus for me is having those healthy borders between
Yep.
the lawn and the beds.
It makes it me and Aaron talked about this a couple episodes back. We talked about sustainability, but
Mm-hmm.
not like sustainability goes two ways. And for us, we were talking more about the sustainability of like when you create your space, make it manageable.
Oh yeah.
Like what don't you like about taking care of your yard or your garden, and work towards creating that space to eliminate the things that you don't like to the best
Yeah.
of your ability or reduce them. So I think that's an awesome point,
Yeah.
because if again if it's a chore, it's no fun.
100%. Yeah. And it's just get out there and do something. Like figure out what your goal is. I had a lot of people reach out about the video I originally posted. I think maybe you had commented on it, and be like, "Oh, your yard is so beautiful. I don't know where to start." And I was like, "That was me for a couple years," and I kept putting it off. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." And finally, I just said, like, "I'm tired of all these projects. I'm gonna get them done this year." And I went out there and I just started, and I just let my creativity play and do it all. I was like, I don't have $100,000 to pay somebody to do it right now, So I'm gonna buy this paycheck. I'll buy this paycheck, and I'll get the borders. Then I'll do some
Yeah.
lighting, So just do something. Start once you get that foundation. Some people don't even need to work on their foundation. They have a great yard. They don't have low spots. Maybe their soil is a little sandier and it doesn't hold water like the hard
Yeah,
clay, the
maybe all
clay
the fencing and
soils.
the structures are
Yeah,
there already.
maybe they just it's a newer house and it was all perfect when they bought it, and that's fantastic. And you can just focus on what you want to grow, whether it's vegetables, flowers, if you want to have a garden and a raised bed, whether you just want to have a perfectly manicured lawn, if you want maybe a pergola with a hot tub or a place to sit with some chairs, and you want to put some Peggy Martins on it and make it that inviting space that when a guest comes over, that's a big thing for me. We mostly have family come over. We cook almost every weekend. We do something, and I was like, Summer, I love being outside, and I want other people to want to come outside too.
Yeah.
So I was like, what can I do to make it more inviting? And so that was also kind of played a part in it. So I just can't wait to see where it goes. I'm just excited now.
It's an
Like,
adventure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to see where it grows and what I'm going to come up with next out there. It's just, I'm no different than anybody else. I just finally had a vision and I started working towards it.
I think it's important for people just to realize that anybody can
Anybody can do that.
anybody can do something
Yeah.
to some caliber. You just have to start.
Yeah, even if you have a lower budget, I mean, there's people always giving away rocks and stuff for free. I see it all the time on Facebook.
I'm giving away stuff all the time from our
Yeah.
like stuff that we haul off, or
Mhm.
it's like, or we'll haul it off and it's like it's something of value, but like I'm gonna sit on it. And It's
Yeah.
like, hey, like make me an offer and I'll give you this incredible deal for this pallet of flagstone I picked up
Yeah.
somewhere, and
Yeah.
just like move it out of my way and you
Mhm.
do something great because you love it. And that's,
Mhm.
there's all kinds of ways to cut corners and cost and
Yeah.
still make it awesome. I think before I wrap up this episode, I'm gonna ask you one last question
Sure.
at the end. One thing that came to mind while I was sitting here, because as a landscaper, I encounter this a lot, and this is something that I encourage people to utilize, but utilize sparingly. And if you are going to use your homework, so one of the favorite thing for people to do when they're in positions like you, where you're wanting to create this space and they're wanting to get that big vision, is to obviously use the new tool of the age, and that's AI.
Mhm.
And AI is great for a lot of things, but one thing that I find that it is not wonderful for is fully creating a landscape space. It can definitely help you get
Inspiration.
inspiration
Mhm.
and a vision of maybe some fundamental pieces, like maybe you want a pathway here, maybe you want a bed over here, or a pergola. But the one thing that I encourage people to, if you're gonna listen to it, to do your homework, is plant selection.
Mhm.
We just had a client come to us and they they they're helping somebody design this space. They had a really cool concept, really cool picture, totally achievable, but the plants that were in there, while AI says that they're okay for this area, they're not okay for this specific microclimate.
Mhm.
And so you get into that realm, like you can set yourself up for total failure by placing these plants that don't belong in this specific microclimate.
Mhm.
And then you're starting over, and then you wasted all this time and you feel like you did something wrong. So if you're going to use the tools of the age, make sure you really scrutinize it and like get down to the specifics. Learn. Take your design to somebody who knows. Come to the feed store somewhere.
Absolutely.
Ask questions from other people. Get input and find the successes and failures from other people in groups. I know you started a new group on Facebook,
Mhm.
and you can ask your peers, even if they're people you don't know, for insight about certain things to find those pros and cons, so that when you go out there, especially if you're budget conscious, like you know you set yourself up for a higher success rate right out of the gate because you've got some input from other people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like you go out and buy a pallet of moss rock or something and put it out as your border. If you're not prepared to like maintain an edge around it, then grass is going to grow through it. The next thing you know, your bed's going to be taken over. So those are things you might not think of that your peers can help you. So
Yeah.
look out there, talk to people in your area to find out what's working. But as I wrap up this episode, my last question is, if you could give one tip to somebody starting a new project, no matter what size or what type, in your head, what's one tip that's worked for you that you think would help somebody else?
Really, you want to know what helped me? It might sound a little, a little generic, but just start. Like, don't put it off. No, I mean, it could be any kind of project, whether you have to put in a drain, whether you're doing irrigation, whether it's for raised beds. Like you said, ask your local. If it's something over your head, ask somebody. There's lots of great things on YouTube's podcasts like this,
Yeah.
lots of educational things. There's unlimited information out there these days at the tip of your fingers. So just start. Don't be lazy. Don't put it off. Just grab a shovel, grab a plant, grab whatever you need, and just go do it. Because you're never gonna. Even if you did one step a day, you're that much closer. That was my thing. I told my wife, I was like, if I move just one of these rocks out of this pile of moss rock every day, eventually that bed's gonna be done.
Or I can just keep thinking about it and it never get done.
Yeah.
Um, you know, this podcast exists for that exact reason. You mentioned Gary Vee before we started recording today. That was the catalyst for me, just like getting out of my own head and just like starting the project.
Nothing's perfect when it starts.
Nope.
You don't know everything. There's not a person on this planet that started gardening and knew everything.
Nope.
Or started lawn care and knew everything, or landscaping.
Yeah, whatever it is that
just have fun with it. That's a big thing. Have fun with it. Enjoy it.
Make it enjoyable.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people tell me, "Oh, you should start landscaping." It's like, that'd be great, but I want to keep enjoying it. I don't know that I want to do it for every day.
It's hard. as a landscaper, it's hard sometimes to enjoy
Yeah.
it, you know, um, especially whenever you go home and you create projects for other people that are
Hmm.
that you like better than your own, and you're just like, "God, man, I want to redo all my stuff," or like, man,
Yeah.
this, I wish I'd have known that 5 years ago when I did
Hmm.
my own thing, you know. So,
Yeah.
but cool. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today,
Yeah.
and
Thanks for having me.
yeah, so we'll catch you guys next time on the compost pile.